And welcome to the Inside Bristol podcast. My name is Andy Taylor, and I'm joined as usual by Stuart and Isaac as we are looking to review Week 3's results of the BUCS 2025-2026 season and look ahead towards Week 4. We are live on YouTube and Facebook, so if you are listening to this, please join us on a nice weekday evening as we talk you through this live. Get involved in the chat and tell us your thoughts and what we got right and what we got wrong. Today we will be looking at the results, and in between that we'll look at the writers' poll that came out last week, and we'll be waiting with bated breath for it to come out again this week because we are now doing it weekly, and I'm sure you guys are very happy to see it's 25, even though it makes our lives a lot harder. So I'm sure we'll touch on that when we get there. But yeah, absolutely. Any of you guys get out at the weekend to see anything? I didn't get out myself, but plenty to talk about nonetheless in terms of results. So as always, let's get straight into it and have a little look at what happened in the Prem, because there wasn't a whole lot that we were talking about in the preview, really, although some interesting talking points that have come out nonetheless. Isaac, do you want to have first dibs here?
Yeah, well, I think the Prem National kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? Like we kind of knew what we were expecting in them two games. We knew that Leeds Beckett are a bit better than last year, but will still struggle to compete against Gold. And we knew that Loughborough, their QB went down injured last week. We knew they could struggle as well against UWE Bullets. It wasn't quite as bad as people expected, but still, nonetheless, UE got the well-deserved win. The game that I really want to focus on, though, is the NTU versus Northumbria game. I think we all thought that NTU were just going to, it won't be their year this year. They'll struggle. They could have a relegation fight. And, that looking at the first game of the season, you could see that was right. But now that they picked up a huge win. Northumbria led for most of the game, and it was in the last 12 seconds of the game, a Hail Mary pass from I think he's an American import. They've got a QB. And they've won the game. So yeah, watching the film as well that we got luckily from the QB, it looked like a great end of the drive as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a stunning final drive, wasn't it? Great game management, sideline to sideline, and then what was it? Undersold as a Hail Mary, but it was a long pass nonetheless, and NTU come out 13-10 winners over Northumbria Mustangs, which is obviously a huge boost to their season. Probably disappointment for Northumbria based on their first win. How does that shape up that division then? If we I'm not going to spend too much detail on it, but this is making this division quite difficult to read early on, isn't it? Warwick have done what we expected Warwick to do, albeit relatively close. But NTU have now lost 4 points to Warwick, and now they've beaten Northumbria, who beat Leeds. So is this going to be a case of everyone's going to beat everyone, or is it still to be seen?
Yeah, I think it's to be seen, really. I think that we can say that Leeds have definitely taken a hit from losing as many coaches as they have. Not just the head coach and their offensive coordinator, but a lot of the positional coaches have also now gone to Leeds Beckett. That's been a huge loss for them. But no, I think it's just going to be that hard to call all season long, really. And it's kind of why this new rearrangement happened last year, just so then it's as close as it always is now, and that you go into each game not knowing what's going to happen.
100%. Stuart, what results stand out to you then from the Prem? Because we've talked about a few there, but any for yourself?
I think how close SGS were kept by Portsmouth. Obviously, Portsmouth have had 2 outings already where they've kind of been bested by their opponents. We kind of got information from SGS about their under-19s regional team, but obviously that's different to their university team. So I think this shows that the Pride Brunel game in a few weeks' time is going to be sort of the key interesting fixture in this division to decide where do Brunel sit, where do Pride sit, and then where do the rest kind of sit. Watching the Brunel game, I know Depth Chart Sports had several technical issues during the stream, so fair play to them for sticking at it and providing a stream that we could all watch football on. In the end, the football turned out to be kind of I was chatting to someone else, and they said it was kind of D squared in the running back camp. So there was Davide Pinto and David Moore in the backfield, and just watching those two run the football was, me and you all know this, Andy, was like old school Pittsburgh Steelers, where you literally just gave Jermaine Bettis the ball and he would do the rest or something like that. It was, one would lead block for the other, one would carry the ball and just truck a few guys and then trundle his way into the end zone. And then all of a sudden, their quarterback, Zielinski, I think his name was, they were saying, he would all of a sudden just hurl a ball up 80-odd yards for a touchdown to the receiver that was catching everything 2 weeks ago. So they look like an all-round program, because even when they're on defense, they're holding teams to 8 points a game, which in the first game apparently was a garbage time touchdown. But this one against Cardiff, wasn't. But they're consistent in that defense, and they're throttling as well, quite frankly. The other end of the scale, it sounds like Leeds Beckett Nottingham Gold was a little bit spicy. There was a few bits that was up on socials that we kind of clipped and shared between us, wasn't there? And then from a few people that were at the game, standing on both sidelines, have said exactly the same thing, that there was certainly no love lost between the two sidelines and the 11 players that were on the field at each time. So some people like to see it, some people don't. When it's competitive, it gets chippy. By the end of this game, it doesn't look like it was that competitive, and it's usually the winning team that stays chippy and likes to celebrate. It's just whether you do it with a little bit of class, and I'm not saying that Nottingham don't. It's just how you then handle each other. We weren't there, we're not going to comment on it, but yeah, certainly the entirety of the game sounds like it was spicy. The team that we thought probably would win did win in the end, rather convincingly. But yeah, it was just the whole surroundings of that I found interesting, with how chippy and spicy it was. Let's say it like that.
100%. 51-12 to the Gold against Beckett, and to your point, Brunel, they're for real, aren't they? 47-8 winners over Cardiff. That's an interesting one. I'm going to slightly disagree with you, just from my personal opinion around SGS. I'm not surprised by that scoreline at all. From what I know of SGS and what I've observed over the years, their offense always starts slow, but their defense is always there. And to get this, I would be probably more shocked if there was more than a 0 on the board, knowing how SGS set up their defense, and then obviously to come away with what looks like either 2 touchdowns and a few field goals, or a few touchdowns there. I think that's a win for them, really, isn't it? In more senses of the word, because the last thing that they needed was to go to Portsmouth and not come up with the win, didn't they? And that just sets up an amazing week 5 showdown between SGS and Brunel in a few weeks' time. Can't wait for that. Yeah, and you know what? To your point around being able to see, we had it at the Nighthawks a few years ago, where we had LT and Deshaun, who were 2 running backs. One was an agile, cutting running back who you just couldn't bring down because you couldn't touch him, and then Deshaun, who would just run over anybody, would literally try and run over people rather than trying to get away from them, and it's just impossible to keep on top of, isn't it? And when you have that, but yeah, no, we'll touch on it when we talk about the writers' poll in a little while, but I've got a question for you in a little while which involves a couple of the sides that we've already talked about, for sure. So yeah, no, very interesting sort of results there that have come out of the Prem. Let's have a look at the northern side of the tier 1. Unfortunately, we didn't get Aberdeen versus Stirling. That was an away walk over to Stirling in the end. We have since learned that the week 1 result that Aberdeen didn't play against Edinburgh Mavericks, is now been awarded a walkover as well. So Aberdeen, unfortunately, showing form are on -4. And unfortunately, 2 other teams haven't been able to play. So shame on you, Aberdeen. Let's call it out. Shame on you.
I mean, technically on BUCS Play, this one isn't awarded yet. Sterling were fairly convinced. Sterling were fairly convinced it will be, and even if it wasn't, there was some football played between these two teams, and I think the winner was obvious out of that as well. So yeah, I think this is just doing its due diligence in the process as well, and I'm fairly happy that we can declare it as such.
I will believe that they're a team when I actually see them play, because I can't remember the last time I saw them play. So it's a real shame.
Just be like the Pyros. Just say you're not going to play the games. What's the point? Just don't be in the league at all.
Yeah, or the Bradford Bears, you know.
Yeah.
or Banger, or there's other teams.
Chester Legion, I think. Chester Legion are developing. Salford aren't. We'll come on to Salford later.
Yeah, I couldn't let you get away with that one, Isaac. I'm afraid. So, Stuart, I'll give you first dibs here. What results stand out to you here across this slab of Tier 1 North?
If I'm honest, I think it's, well, I was going to say it's the shellacking that's in the middle of the screen, but there are two sort of huge results. Edinburgh Napier keeping that massive train going. They certainly look like the real deal up in Scotland. I can see them going into playoffs fairly convincingly this year. It's just then everybody else from south of the border that has to look up and really focus on that. I'm feeling a little bit like a broken record, because I think I said that last week. And then the Raptors coming down from the Prem after their sort of double doink up to the Premiership. They came down and the Lancashire Rams just trampled all over them. No pun intended. Don't roll your eyes, Isaac. And also somewhere in that game, there was a huge field goal. The Rams shared on their Instagram, didn't they, of James Aubrey-Williams, who has apparently surpassed the longest field goal in their history, and a 48-yard field goal. Ironically, somebody else had messaged the IBB page about Cam Little's field goal in the NFL at the weekend. Hence my story post to say whatever Cam Little can do, we can do better. So, yeah, let's. If anybody has any longer field goals, either on film or knowledge, let's send them in, and we'll give you a shout out as well, because we love special teams.
Kickers are real.
You can win games on offense and defense. You can win games on offense and defense, but the fun is where special teams happens. So get them over to us as well. But yeah, again, the Rams look like they could be up there in that northern 1A as well. And I'm sure Isaac will go into a little bit more detail about the Midlands. I'm sure, Isaac.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't know the result until I found it out for the Nottingham Green game, which was great. I think Leicester, they need to show something else in these next few weeks, because right now they're looking like they're favourites for relegation. Nottingham Green continue doing what they do, and I'll look into Roy Kim at number 1 spot again in the Midlands. Last year had a disappointing end when they lost to Hallam, and then lost to Hallam in the regular season and in the playoffs a week later. But no, Nottingham now just need to try and bounce back and see if they can get to the Prem. But the team I really want to focus on is that Sheffield Sabres side, coming up from on Tier 2 and straight away going 2-0, beating the side they did in the Northern final last year as well, and beating the Leicester Longhorns. That them two could have been seen as the two that are favourites for relegation, but Coach Phil and the work that he's done at the Sheffield Sabres this year has shown that they're strong, and they will prove a challenge to Hallam and Nottingham.
Yeah, I mean, like 100%. Is that not one of the biggest stories of T1 North at the moment? Is that Sheffield Sabres? In terms of what they've done already, they've beaten they've beaten Leicester, they've beaten Derby, and they are two stalwarts of this tier. And obviously Derby being finalists last year as well, but have been in and around Tier 1 for years. There's plenty going on in Manchester as well, isn't there? Let's wait to be seen. How is Edinburgh Napier going to just keep rolling over people as well in the north and Scotland as well?
Well, the game in Manchester, we were getting updates up until about half time, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened in that second half. think one side started losing, but no, and then we didn't get anything. So yeah, interesting.
Half time, and you can tell why, can't you? Because it was 14-0 at half time. And
I wonder what happened in that second half, guys.
16 points unanswered, unfortunately. But no, absolutely. We should probably, for our audio listeners, tell them some of the scores as well, shouldn't we? So Napier Knights 53-0 is one that we talked about there against Heriot Watt. Rams 55-0 against Raptors. 16-14 Tyrants to MMU. Some great results there, isn't there, that we've covered, and plenty to schmooze over when we're talking about polls, which we'll get to in a little while. Anyway, let's have a look further south though. I think this is a really interesting slab, this, and we may have had some pre-season questions answered. Certainly when you take into account some of your previews as well, Isaac. What results stand out to you here in the south?
I think I'm going to take Stuart's here, but it's that Southern Division again. Like if you look at, you thought the Hurricanes have a chance here to go against the Birmingham side that need to regroup and re-go again, but you see it was a close game. Hertfordshire losing 15-14 to the Lions, and the Lions in that game, it looks like they've shown just that they are still a Prem side and that they, and go to that next step. The one problem that they're going to have though is Oxford Brooks. Oxford Brooks coming out on top against the Oxford Lancers, and as Stuart says, the nicest looking kit in Brit Ball. I disagree, but they're in.
Prove it.
They're showing how good they can be, Oxford Brooks, and they've got great coaches down there. They've got a great squad, and that if Birmingham want to bed that league up and go into the playoffs and go deep into it and make the way into the Prem, that Brooks are going to be a tough test for them to go against. Yeah,
37 over the Oxford Lancers is an amazing start for them, and they're now 2-0, are they? 2-0. What's that? 64 points in 2 games, conceding next to nothing. There again, they were a decision to be made when doing the writers' poll this week, for sure. Stuart, what about you? What scores stand out to you here?
I think it's the lopsidedness of the Southeastern. KCL versus Kingston was 30-0, and Brighton UCL was 43-0. So sort of 2 really lopsided fixtures. I just wonder whether we're going to end up with a division that we kind of did last year. UEA were kind of here or there, but Kings and Kent sort of finished 14 and 12 points, and UCL Essex kind of finished down the bottom with sort of 4 and -4. Yeah, okay, Essex kind of had the odd game forfeited here and there, but I just wonder whether we're going to get that sort of split in that division again. Bournemouth continue to chew away at their negative points, trying to sort of fight their way back into contention. And then we had a game of 2 halves in Plymouth. So Southampton were 26-0 up at half time, and Plymouth won the second half 14-0. Fair play to Plymouth. They've sort of this was the one result that I had to kind of try and ask for and get, and I sort of asked both teams if they had any nuggets for us, and Plymouth just held their hands up and were like, yeah, we just started way too slow, and we had a real mountain to climb to sort of get back into this game, but they felt that they really sort of dominated that second half, and they felt that if they'd have played a full 2 halves of football, this score may well have been a bit closer. So we appreciate that sort of honesty, and we appreciate that feedback. So yeah, that's it'd be interesting to see. And I know I spoke about Plymouth last week even, about being that sort of cyclical team. So it'd just be interesting to see how they progress going throughout this season in that rather tough division, to be fair. A lot of long-standing T1 teams that are very competitive. So it'd be interesting to see how they slot in.
100%. Yeah, 33-13 was the Bournemouth to Bath Killer Bees as well. And yeah, week by week, that Southwestern table just looks weirder and weirder, doesn't it? Because now we've got somebody who's won a game at the top 3 people who have lost a game in the middle, and then Bournemouth -3 at the bottom with 2 wins. Hopefully that'll rectify itself in 2 weeks' time anyway. You wouldn't put it past Bournemouth to continue going. But about the Southeast, Kent and Brighton coming up, which will be a very interesting fixture that we'll probably touch upon in a little while as well, right? Because plenty going into that game so early in the season. Let's have a little look at tier 2 then. Not that many this week. Certainly not many that got played either. Unfortunately, Hull Sharks YSJ was postponed to
Which is one of the only games that we can speak about, and I can't say either place. What's the...
So, and then we've got Surrey versus Solent that didn't happen either. I wonder if it was Kit, Isaac, that YSJ that postponed. Anyway, moving on quickly.
I wonder if it was them game balls that they needed so badly, or the tackle bags, maybe.
Moving on quickly. We did have 2 results, though. Lancaster took it to Staffs 15-0, and Aberystwyth got slaughtered by Gloucestershire 50-0, a burger donut. So where are you going with this then, Isaac? The one that you can say, or the one that you can't?
I can say that one. I'm okay with that one. I'm comfortable. I know where the places are. They're not made up. It's all good. So
surely he can't insult anyone here.
I won't. I think this game, when talk about it, it's one of them games that both sides kind of had to win if they wanted any sort of chance at the playoffs or any chance of moving up into tier 1. You look at it and you think, LGMU are going to be strong. We've got the unidentified object of Salford. We don't know what they're going to be like. So yeah, it was going to be whatever side wins this. It was they're going to have a better chance, kind of thing. Then we know where they stood. And Staffordshire just look like they couldn't get out the gates quick enough, and Lancaster put them to the sword and really showed what they're about and that they can go back into tier 1. Mm-hmm. You can take the one I can't say now. That's fine. You can say them places really well.
You say they came out the gates fast. It was 15-0, and I'm sure we got told that there was a safety of some description as well, or maybe even 2 safeties.
Hey, don't care how you win, just win.
Speaking of winning, fair play to Gloucestershire. They made the hike over to Aberystwyth. Isaac got them both in all right, and I think come away with an unexpected massive margin, 50-0. I don't think anybody had kind of thought this was going to go this way. Aberystwyth have usually been competitive in years gone by, and I think that this kind of sets a stick in the mud. I can say that because that's pretty much what their field is. And it sets that sort of yardstick of, okay, is this where we're at? Like, there's probably going to be a few people having a long, hard look at themselves, thinking, yeah, let's regroup. There are other games in this division that we now need to focus on. And then it's for the Glads' point of view. They're obviously celebrating it quite impressively. It looks like their quarterback Ollie Sweeney had quite a stellar day. They posted a rather pretty graphic of him and his stats. So fair play to him. And it's just whether they can continue. Definitely not we for Gloucester. Never associate that. Strict that from the record books. Whether Gloucester can continue that going on throughout the season.
Says the former Worcester Royal.
I love Worcester. You said that.
Yeah.
I don't know where that is, but I'll tell them
make that a clickbait banner, shouldn't we?
We'll click that
up. But no, I mean the question that I've got in my head on the back of that 50-0 win, is that a sign of how good UE2 are? Or
how poor the Gladiators were in week 1.
That's an maybe, but if you beat the side 38-6, but if you beat the side that's just 150-0, 38-6, are you actually that good? But it remains to be seen, as you rightly point out, Isaac.
I guess we'll find out when Bullets 2 play Aberystwyth, won't we?
Yeah.
If it's 83-1, then we're fine.
We will have to wait till the new year for that one. I've just had a quick look. So that is that. So yeah, plenty that has gone on there in week 2 for sure. when week 2 comes up, we then have to get our heads together and think about how we're going to rank 25 people, because that's what the writers' poll has evolved into. So we get our heads together alongside Depth Chart Sports and First Down Mag, and we come up with a poll. And the second iteration of the writers' poll was published last week, and it's fair to say it was relatively interesting looking at how they all fared out, and certainly when you start comparing to yourself and so on. So let's have a little look through it while we can. Let's remove that, Andy, and show the writers' poll, because that's what we want to show. So top being Uwe Bullets, Nottingham Gold, Durham Saints, but Brunel Burners and then SGS Pride making up the top 5. Any surprises there for you two?
Well, SGS Pride, because they didn't play yet. I still thought that Beckett or Loughborough should be on there. Because you look at them 2 losses, and it's that thing of what's a good loss, what's a bad loss. But now they've all played, now we can start seeing where it properly lies.
Yeah, fair dues. Yeah, understood. I get that. SGS Pride being, and Durham being the 2 sides at that point that hadn't played. I suppose that's more a power ranking from last week than it is from last year, rather than it is a results-based poll, right, in that situation. Anything for you, Stuart? Anything surprising? To me, it wasn't. Probably Brunel being 4 might be a little bit spicy for me, but, I can see it. I can understand it. It's certainly not something that I'm going to argue against. What about you?
No, I think you kind of covered it last week when you were talking about your tiers within your 25. I can appease Brunel being there. I can agree with it. My tiers look a little bit different to yours. I had the 5 Prem national teams in the top 5 and kind of ranked that off last year. So yeah, mine's probably more of a power ranking from 25 than it is of a poll of 26, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, I can agree with it. You've kind of covered the SGS thing, so yeah, I get it.
Fair. Let's have a little look a bit further down then. So this is where obviously the poll from week 1 or pre-season started to change quite a bit, because obviously we stopped at 10 first time around. So for those who are listening, Loughborough, Warwick, Cardiff, Leeds, Beckett and Northumbria make up the top 10. Any gripes or agreements or pains that you have with that top 10?
No. Not in week 2. For week 3, yes, but not for week 2. But for week 3, I could see the likes of NTU jumping up there, and after their win against Northumbria, and a bit of shuffling around, and Cardiff dropping down after their loss, and yeah, a lot of shuffling around hopefully in week 3.
Yeah.
I guess it's just where Leeds Beckett sat for me. Obviously, I was like, okay, they're a Prem national team and they're down at 9. Like, there's 4 or 5 North and South Prem teams. How's that happening? But yeah, I guess based on results that had actually happened, it's fair in week 2.
Yeah, and it goes back to that sort of that. Is it you, Stuart, that says Prem national by default? Right, and I suppose you can understand where others are starting to think where there might be that grey at the bottom to the top of those 2 tiers, the 1A and 1B. 11 to 15, Newcastle, Exeter, NTU, Edinburgh, Napier, Portsmouth. Portsmouth being the lowest seeded Prem side, if memory serves, because I can't remember the rest off the top of my head, but I think they are there. Again, anything stand out to you? Portsmouth a bit low, probably. Maybe being a bit too much for those results, but I can understand it.
Yeah, I can understand it, but especially when Exeter haven't played yet as well. It's that thing of we've seen what Portsmouth can do, especially against SGS, where they've held them to the smallest points total. They have 20 team all season long, but when Exeter haven't played yet, so it's a bit of a weird one. I can understand why Edinburgh and Napier is so high. They've really started the season well and carried on from last season. So I think even pre-season they'd be this high anyways. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this was.
Yeah,
go on. You were about to say.
this was before Portsmouth had held SGS.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can appease them being at 15, and I think you probably guessed that I'm on the Napier train. So yeah, for them to be at 14, I kind of get. And I think my week 3 picks, although it's not gone out, I think my week 3 picks kind of shows again that I'm still on the Napier train. So there's 8, 9, or 10 of us, I think, in this, so it kind of averages itself out, which is fair. But yeah, I think before week 2, I think Portsmouth are probably, for Portsmouth to be below Edinburgh. Would Edinburgh go down and beat Portsmouth? Heck of a journey that, by the way. But yeah, they probably would beat Portsmouth on the Portsmouth showings and the Edinburgh showings. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with 6 through 15.
I've got my ballot alongside, and it's interesting how this week is very similar to my week 3 ballot and very different to my week 2 one. And then to round it off, then
completely different from my week 2. Like,
well,
there were div 2 teams everywhere.
You forgot about half the teams, didn't you?
Yeah, I forgot about Nottingham Green.
There's only 25 teams in BUCS for Isaac in week 2.
I swore at one point I was writing, I'm thinking, there's only 24 teams I can think of. Yeah, just look at a list.
And then to round off the 25, we had Bournemouth, Lancashire tied at 16. We got Leeds, so I lied. They are the lowest Prem side at 18. OBU, Glasgow, Nottingham Green, Hertfordshire, Kent, MMU, and Sheffield Hallam Warriors. So I don't think there's any surprises of those teams that have been picked. Are there any notable omissions from your guys' point of view in the top 25? I'm sure that might be rectified this week, but any view?
It would be Sheffield over Sheffield Hallam for me, really.
Yeah.
Would be the only one I'd say. I know that we got last season to go for Sheffield Hallam, but you don't come up into a different tier and beat a side who's been in there for as long as anyone can remember straight away. But I think the rest of it you can kind of agree with. Maybe Oxford Brooks being 19, you could say that they deserve to be on the same level as Bournemouth and Lancashire.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't feel right at all. I'm sorry, UCLan. Yeah,
I think I'm not quite sure where Hearts came from for everybody else. I must have looked past them during this week because they obviously hadn't played at this point, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
My thinking about it now for week 3. Obviously Brum beat Hearts, so maybe we see Hearts drop down for week 3 and Brum step up. I'm glancing across to my 25 for week 3 and I'm being slightly hypocritical here, but yeah, certainly Brum, I think if we did like a 25 to 30, I think Brum would appear in that above Hearts in that bit. But yeah, I think seeing Hearts in there, I think people must have known a few things that we didn't going into that ballot.
Yeah, 100%.
Also, I remember being that high. I don't know how I feel about that either, especially after this week.
Yeah, well, this won't include that, but it feels that Glasgow got quite a bit of a bump because of their week 2 results. MMU probably surprised a few people, so got a bit of a bump as well after they beat Edge Hill, wasn't it? I can imagine that we'll see a couple of new faces this week. In my head, when I was doing it, Brighton would be one that I can imagine that we might see after their convincing win. Manchester, the Tyrants being, what sort of bump do they get, and do we see the likes of Sheffield Hallam and Hearts drop this week as a result of those results, which will be interesting. I did warn you before we started that I was going to ask you a question because I'm interested about this, and I'm going to go back to the top. So I've mentioned my tiers, haven't I? That I kind of do. I think in the top 25, I've got about 5 tiers where I'm grouping teams together, and it's flexible. I do it week on week, but notably, I've got 2 at the top in tier 1, being Bullets and Gold. So my question to you guys is: has anyone yet earned the right to be in that tier 1 alongside them, do you think? And if not, who do you think's the closest to it? And is it who we see on the screen, or is it somebody else?
I I think it'd be tricky to have anybody outside of the Prem National in that top tier, really. And I know it's that Prem National bias and stuff, but they're in the National for a reason. They are the arguably the 5 best teams over the last few seasons. I mean, maybe not Beckett, they over last season, and if SGS played and stuff like that, but realistically, it's them top 3 of UWE, Notts, and Durham. Durham arguably being the closest that could go into that top 2. You know, after last season when they beat Notts and when they've done it in previous seasons as well, I think then the only 3 sides that deserve to be in that top tier, really. Because then you look at Loughborough and Beckett's, and you know they might beat each other this season, but for the most part, they're getting beaten by everybody else as well.
I think if I tackle your first question first about does anybody break into that top 2, I think it's going to surprise nobody to hear me say no. I don't think there is. You look at the 4 fixtures that have happened so far. UE beat Beckett 62-0. UE beat Loughborough 56-0. Nottingham beat Loughborough 29-0. Nottingham beat Beckett 51-12. 29's the narrowest margin of points. That's a touchdown a quarter. I don't think anybody breaks into those top 2. Simple. I like to see Brunel in the top 5. I think time will tell whether they get competitive in the playoffs and going into next year. Who was at 5 on that graphic? It was
SGS.
It was SGS, wasn't it? Again, they turned down the chance to be in the Prem National. Ipso facto, I think, turned down the chance to be in the top 5 because they knew what was coming. They knew what sort of squad they were going to have this year. That decision makes a lot more sense now than it did when we were sort of ribbing them for it after the national final last year. Fair play to them. You know, it happens in the national leagues when teams opt out of promotion or when they don't take voluntary promotion, when they haven't won a bowl game or something like that. I get it. I'm kind of not backing them on this because, you know, hopefully it was a team decision and they made that. That's fair. But yeah, I don't think they break into the top 5. So I think the top 5 are, for me, probably still all of the Prem National teams.
My one question back on what you just said, Stuart, is if SGS did play the game against Becky and let's say they win, does that not then show to the players who left or the new recruits coming in that they're in the national? It kind of acts like more of a better advert for them. Whereas when they've said, "Oh no, we're not going to play the game," to me as a player, I'd be like, right, I was in 2 minds. If I'm going, they don't want to be at the top. I do. I'm going. And it's other players as well who, you know, want to play for SGS, but they've got opposites like Nottingham or Leeds Beckett who are playing against the top. Do you know what I mean? They, in a way, they've done it themselves. Yeah. Really, that bad recruitment kind of drive thing they've had.
Yeah, but again, I think it comes down to the recruiter. So if you've got great facilities, if you've got a great sell, if you can just, and they might be coming to study a 4 or a 5 year course. You know, Coach Herod being the head coach, he might have gone, hey, look, we're still going to be Prem South this year. Come and play for me. We'll earn a right to be in the Prem National again next year. It doesn't matter about 1 more year in the Prem South. You know, we'll do what we did again. We'll roll. We'll get back to the Prem final and we'll get promoted again. That's kind of your sales pitch to those guys thinking, okay, do I go to a Gold who have got a 40, 50 roster strong, maybe 100 player over Gold and Green? Do you kind of get lost in that process? Exactly. Do you kind of get lost in that process, or do you go to SGS where, you know, they're serious on their education as well, mind? Not saying Nottingham isn't, but you also then get to train 4 or 5 times a week with some fantastic facilities. Again, not saying Nottingham's or your UEs don't have that, but you're kind of selling a vision, right? You're not just selling a 1 year program. So yeah, I see it. I see your argument as well. I see devil's advocate, angel and devil on each shoulder. But yeah, for me, I think they probably did the right thing now, knowing what we know.
The one thing's almost for certain is that if you asked any of the players, they would have wanted to have been in the national. If you ask coaches and program managers, that's when the analytics comes in, doesn't it? And the strategy comes in. To Isaac's point, isn't it? But I get both.
Yeah, in this Prem National, they'll still be able to compete. You know what I mean? But we never know.
Well, they showed last year that they were the best in the Prem. Therefore, by default, they're probably power rated above, definitely above Leeds Beckett, potentially above Loughborough, based on last year's results, and challenging Durham. And that's why I thought this was an interesting conversation, because then you are starting to talk about, is SGS up there or Durham up there? And probably the answer to my question is Durham, isn't it? Durham's probably at the moment, based on everything that we know so far, the closest to that top tier. But we've got SGS potentially closely there if they can get themselves into the national. Brunel, if they can get themselves into the national and continue with the momentum that they're doing and the recruiting that they're doing. London's a great place to be recruiting out of, isn't it? And so on. So interesting. I don't want to labour the point too long, but I might pick up next week another question for you, because it's interesting as I'm doing the poll myself. These obvious questions come out, and I want to start putting them to you, which maybe I'll make that my weekly challenge to give you something to talk about, because I find it very interesting. Go on.
We're going to end up with Andy's anecdote of the week, aren't we? Where he challenges me and you,
something
Isaac.
like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know what? If the tiers doesn't work and you want to think of it in a different way, I'm absolutely happy to do that. But the way I've been structuring it, that's when when am I going to bump those people up into the next tier? And to be fair, this week when looking through, I bumped up one, two, maybe three teams into a different tier based on the results. I obviously thought that they were worse than they actually are, and I think that it's really interesting to have that conversation anyway. So anyway, don't labour the point too much, Andy. So that's week 3. The writers' poll will be out very soon. I would assume that sometime either Friday or Saturday. And let's have a look at week 4, because we've still got plenty to talk about, still got plenty of fixtures. Whether they happen, we will see. But let's have a look at week 4. And as always, we start off with the Prem National. Isaac, is there any games this week that stand out to you?
That goal Bury game looks really attractive. It does. But I can't wait to see what Leeds Beckett do against a side that they could see potentially beating. If the coaches this year have probably gone, right, the two teams we can possibly beat are Loughborough and Durham. And now we get to see what Leeds Beckett can do. Yeah, the third game in the row. The same for Nottingham and Uwe, though, in a way. Durham are going to come off of an entire pre-season where I don't know if they played a scrimmage or whatever, but with no football, when the rest of the division have already played 2 games, it's going to be a tough start for Durham. I think Leeds Beckett are going to, just come out with it and just see if they can take away the good stuff they did against Nottingham Gold, because there must have been good stuff to score 12 points. Do you know what I mean? There's got to be something good there. But it's going to be a test for them anyways to travel again. But yeah, and then you look at Nottingham Gold game against Uwe Bullets, which I hope is live streamed, but who knows? Yeah.
It is.
Hold that thought.
I've seen it, but yeah, Gold again. They'll be looking to take revenge on what happened last year in this fixture last year, and also the final. And then we get to see what the 2 top teams in BUCS are really all about.
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately, guys, if you do want to watch the live stream, you will have to pay for it. It has been put behind a paywall. So, by all accounts, it's not a team decision. It is a university institution decision. But nonetheless, if you do want to see such an amazing matchup that never fails to entertain, you will have to part away with your sterling in order to watch it, which is kind of can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. Good luck to them. Hopefully they get the numbers that they are hoping for, and it doesn't have too much of a detriment to that. Stuart, what about yourself? Any games other than what Isaac's mentioned that stand out to you that you want to touch upon?
I mean, before we come away from the Prem National, I don't know who's following Durham Saints Instagram account and how many recruitment posts they've put out in the last week or 10 days. They've posted 10 international recruits.
Leeds Beckett.
So yeah, very, very sort of lastminute.com going, oh, we've got a game this week, let's share who we're putting on the roster. So it'd be interesting to see how that combats against Leeds Beckett. So yeah, just thought I'd point that out because no one else had mentioned that. And yeah, I logged in. We got shared the link to both the green and the gold game. I logged in because there was rumours that it was, and yeah, it comes up as a $5.99 monthly subscription. So I think students are cheaper, but I'm nowhere near being a student anymore. So yeah, $5.99
grey hairs.
Yeah. Whatever hairs I've got left. Some of you may notice that no one's commented I've had a haircut so far. So yeah, $5.99 a month. Part you said sterling. That's quite controversial. Yeah, part with your cash or dollars, depending on where you're watching that game from. Say no more. For me, Premiership South, that bottom fixture, Cardiff, SGS. Pride seem to always struggle when they travel to Cardiff. I don't know what it is. It's not exactly a huge journey. It's not a difficult journey. They just seem to struggle. So it'd be interesting to see whether Cardiff can sneak a surprise result. I think it'll be fair to say. And whether we get the Cardiff from week 1 or week 2, wasn't it? It wasn't week 1 because that was a 2-game week. Yeah, from week 2, or whether we get the Cardiff from week 3 where they got burned. Let's use a pun. And then another live stream in the south. Depth Chart Sports again are putting on Brunel Exeter on live stream. So hopefully when I'm at my lads' rugby tournament, I won't be too distracted by my phone playing YouTube videos.
Yeah, 100%. I think Leeds have got they've had a rough start, haven't they? But this is a tough task. Even though, and I keep saying it, and I keep sound like a stuck record, they're probably better, and they've recruited well, and they're not the same team as last year. This is a tough start to the season for them, isn't it? You know, to travel to UE, to host Nottingham, to travel to Durham. That's a tough 3-week stretch for anybody, let alone a team that's trying to prove that they're on the up. So it'll be really good to see what they're doing. And I'm just really interested to know what is the North. And, you know, if Warwick do come away with a victory here, it'll start to cement in my mind that, yeah, no, it is Warwick. And then it's the rest, and Northumbria are probably just better than Leeds, and then you've got that sort of like murky middle, which will be very interesting to see. And you can't imagine Brunel doing anything different other than taking it to Exeter with the steamroll that they're doing at the moment. But lots of questions about Exeter at the moment, isn't there, with changes at head coach and so on. So let's see how they can get on in their second season in the Prem. Let's take a look at T1. Not so many this week that we needed to put them across 2 sheets of paper, which is great. Stuart, I'll give you first dibs. A couple of fixtures here that stand out to you across this slate.
I very nearly put it across 2 graphics, but it was a little bit spaced out for me. So I was like, nope, just stick it on one. I am going to call in a massive homer pick this week. I am going to pick the Lions versus Oxford Brooks. It's on Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock or 10 past 4, I think BUCS Place says. It's going to be their annual, -1 last year, annual explosion event where they tend to have some fireworks. Yeah, pretty much. But it'd be the first one that they've had outside of the Premiership for goodness knows how many years, against a extremely strong, that is fantastic English at this time of night, an extremely strong OBU team that Isaac was like, oh, we'll get to see them play at some point. This is the week. This is going to be the one, and I am gutted that I am working, and I can't go and watch this game because this is either going to be a really close fought battle where Birmingham kind of pull out that defence they had against Hearts last week, although they only won the game on a last minute field goal by looking across socials against Hertfordshire. So I don't think that was as sort of convincing as we may think, or whether Oxford Brooks are going to bring that pace that they've had and bring that up the M40, 42 and give Birmingham a little bit of medicine on their home turf.
It's such a tough challenge for them, isn't it? For the Lions, this will be a really tough challenge because this is almost like the unstoppable force, and they're trying to be the immovable object as the ex-Prem, right? You know, this is one side which is trying to reverse and get going in a different direction, and the other one who's going full speed ahead with the Premiership in their sights, really. And I know there's a long way to go, and there's a number of other teams across this tier who will have something to say about it, but that'll definitely be Calvin's vision for this week, won't it? Keep the momentum going and get them up there. So yeah, that's a really tricky ask for Birmingham, but we will see, won't we? Isaac, what about the rest?
Yeah, before that, do we think that Birmingham will fall into the trap that we've seen Swansea fall into and Hertfordshire, where former Prem sides, like really good Prem sides, all of a sudden get relegated and then just get stuck for a number of seasons? Like, you look at UEA as well. They were in the playoffs 3 years ago, and now they're in Tier 1 as well and struggled. I know it was voluntary relegation, but Birmingham Lions, they've kind of got to just try and get up straight away, because you look at the amount of talent they've got in the South. Bournemouth, they're going to get into the Prem at some point, you've got to think. Brooks, look, they're as good as always. Then, you got Brighton and Kent that could do the job as well. It's a worry for Birmingham because of they could fall into that trap kind of thing. Anyways.
Yeah. And to that, sorry to labour the point, Isaac, before you go on to another one, because what's come up in my mind as well is, are Birmingham aligned where they're shaded they could be south or north? So I know they're in the south here, but could they be north if the balance of it, which is going to make it even tougher for them, isn't it? Because look at Lancs, look at Edinburgh Napier and so on up in the north.
Well, the one that would go into it would probably be Midlands, wouldn't it? And you got, let's say, Green. You got Hallam and Sheffield, two teams that have both shown that they can compete at this level. Derby. Do you know what I mean? It seems like there could be a big struggle for Birmingham, especially if they don't just do it now, kind of thing. And I think that could be a worry to a team that have, wherever I've been watching American football, have always been in that top tier. But yeah,
I'm gonna look while you're going through your fixtures. I'm going to have a look to see if I can find where they're aligned, just to prove our point.
Well, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, the North this week is kind of a strange one. You look at Northern and you got Lancashire against Edge Hill, and you could see Lancashire just going to carry on their momentum, scoring a ridiculous amount of points last week. They could do exactly the same with Edge Hill, who need to bounce back after their loss to MMU. Same with Liverpool; they need to show something, because again, they could get into the same trap that Birmingham could get into if they come against the Manchester side and don't perform. Derby and Leicester, is that an early relegation battle? It could be in week 4. Are we in week 3? I don't know. I get stuck because it's that stupid week 1 before. But that's
actual week 4.
Is it week 4 this one?
It's actual week 4 this one, yeah.
But it realistically is week 3, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Call it week 0, okay? Anyways, but is that an early relegation battle? It looks like it is to me, really. You look at Leicester from last year, and Derby haven't had a good start. And then the game I really wanted to watch, but I'm not paying £6 for the pleasure. That Green against Hallam one, because last year it did get spicy at Hallam. I think there was some fisticuffs. But yeah, that one always has a chance to explode, and it could be no different this year when you got two sides who are both vying for promotion.
I tried to find it. I can't find it. Not quick enough. I can't remember the appendices, but anyway. Oh, I found it.
Have another 30 seconds if you want, because we haven't mentioned Brighton Kent at the bottom, who are two teams that are going to be really competitive in that Southeastern. So yeah, for me, also having worked down in Brighton this year so far, that's going to be another interesting one where I'm going to look down there and go, okay, yeah, who comes out on top of this one, and where does that end up sort of splitting? Kent, although they haven't played, they've won a game, but they were strong last year, and Brighton off that 43-0 win. What, like, are Kent as strong as last year? Let's see what happens when they play Brighton.
It doesn't say. No, it doesn't say. It just states who was relegated and who was promoted. It doesn't actually have north-south alignment. But I can imagine if you had, like, let's say you had some really northern teams come up, right? You can imagine, or even less so, like, imagine if you had like a Coventry or a Lincoln or a Cambridge or something like that came up, that you would potentially see Birmingham aligned to the north in that situation than you would if it was JMU or Hull. But anyway, let's not labour the point. I'm really looking forward to Brighton Kent, see where that's at. Brighton, the real deal against last year's playoff team, and are they rerunning it, the Kent Falcons? So I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of there. Excuse me, for sure. And yeah, I'm always going to look towards my home with Lancs and Liverpool and Manchester, because last week showed that there's potentially a split in that division already, and we're only in week 3 or week 4. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens up in the northwest there, or northern, isn't it? Anything else before we move on to tier 2? Nope. Okay,
Nope.
Let's have a little look at tier 2 then. Isaac, give you first dibs here. Where are you going to be looking at tier 2 this week?
A massive welcome to the BUCS world, to the Salford Storm. Woohoo! Yeah, a new team.
Fireworks graphic. Woo! Bonfire night. Yay!
I mean, it's Bradford. You can probably still hear them, but no, I think
it's not fireworks.
No, not at all. But I think that pre-season, I've seen in a couple of places that Salford have been well regarded and ranked quite high without having any sort of film or any showing so far. And then they come against Kiel. That's a favourable start for Storm, really, in the nicest way possible to Kiel. Salford can look at this and go, yeah, we can start the season 0-1. We've just got to, do what we do, which no one knows what they do, which is kind of a good thing for them as well. So no, that's going to be a big game for them to start the year. And then you look at York, Hull, 2 new. Wait, York's already played against Sunderland, 12-12 draw. Hull haven't played yet. YSJ, where's the game balls? But we that game as well could be an interesting one, because it's the Hull Sharks' head coach first game as a head coach. How are they going to prepare for it? So yeah, I think the northeast and northwest is definitely going to be the most entertaining ones this week.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm drawn towards ARU DMU, probably because they're not spelt out, but they're their initials. But actually, I'm intrigued to know who are you, ARU? Because obviously last year their showing wasn't. I'm sure that was a song, wasn't it? They obviously didn't have a great season last year, and then they've started off 1-0 here with an interesting victory over Lincoln, who I know, Isaac, you felt that they could have been pushing it this year. Where now you lose OBU out of this division, and AAU upset that idea. And then DMU, where are you at? And we're seeing them for the first time, so I'm intrigued to find out kind of like the balance of that competition in the Midlands.
And Coventry as well. We'll have to see
Same.
what they're. It again, another former Premier side that have been stuck since they've been relegated. More to the point.
Yeah, 100%. Stuart, what about you?
I'm wondering whether anything can split City St George and Greenwich. Last season, they shared a 12-all draw. One team, Greenwich, had 7 points with a 3-2-1. and City had 6 points with a 2-2-2 record. So I'm just, I'm looking at that one going,
Tier 2 delight.
It's going to be two Rams like butting at each other, just going, okay, who's going to give first? So yeah, looking forward to that one. And then Essex going down to Tier 2, Imperial, who could really do with a bit of a kickstart. Will that be the one for Imperial to really sort of get going and think, okay, 7-6, we were sluggish, we were slow, let's go again? Or was it, yeah, okay, we really proved ourselves on defense, let's be really sharp this week, and then let's hope our offense can get going? So those two fixtures in the southeast are sort of more intriguing for me than exciting. I think is the way
based
that I'll
on
phrase
last
it.
year.
Yeah, based on the data points that we have to go on.
Was last year the one where they just didn't complete a game for like 3 weeks, and
yes,
St. George were like just waiting to complete a game until like week 7 or something like that.
No, this is the Tier 2 of all Tier 2 divisions.
Right. Isn't it just
based on last year?
Okay.
It was mental. Yeah,
there was like
because this was the one with C4 in it, Canterbury. In it last year, and there was like, are they playing? Are they not playing? Oh no, they drew. Oh no, they're not drew. They've just cancelled the game, and it was like, will someone score a point?
Honestly, I'm looking at the standings from last year. Greenwich was 3-2-1, City was 2-2-2, and Imperial were 1-4-1.
One of them City draws. I remember it. Was it called at like half time because there was somebody injured and it still counted as a draw?
Yeah, it was a 0-0 tie. Yeah, against
really,
Imperial.
really weird.
Yeah, they shook hands, didn't they, and called it a 0-0 draw or something. Yeah, wild division.
I'm a fan, guys. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully we get to see Solent as well. That'll be really nice to see them join the party. I know they got off to a postponement last week or the week before, so we get to see them as well, which is great. So yeah, we're well into it now, aren't we? Really, kicking on and see what happens again, and I'm sure that there'll be plenty of talking points from next year, especially when we're having to then rewrite the 25 as well, which we will break down next week. So we'll obviously be a fixture behind by the time we're talking about it, but that's all right because it gives us a chance to have a look to see what sort of movements we'll be expecting with the week 4 results. Is there anything to get to before we get out of here?
I think so. I think it was all BUCS ball last weekend. It was weird having a complete Saturday off, wasn't it? I don't know if anyone else felt that, but yeah, literally Saturday. I didn't stay off social media because that's impossible nowadays. But yeah, no football to look at, no graphics, no nothing.
Head on over to our Spotify and YouTube from Friday, I think, which at the time we're recording is tomorrow, because Flag guys have got together to look back at the WFFL podcast weekend game day from a couple of weeks ago. This week we have landed the Solent Thrashers Champions Series podcast and the London Blitz under 19. So please go and take a look at them, because I had a lot of fun in those conversations. Isaac, you joined me for the London Blitz. It's great to hear about from that program, and we will bring you Rushmore of the under 16s and Glasgow Hornets of Flag in due course. Head on over to the website for Isaac's preview, which I will actually edit this week. And maybe Isaac will just stop writing them and actually just put them on a YouTube. So a YouTube channel, maybe we'll do that in the future, but I'll leave that up to you, Isaac. But no, nonetheless, please do. He takes a lot of time to have a little look at what each fixture may or may not mean. So please do that. Thank you. I'm racking my brain before I get out of here. There's no GB. There's no WFFL, I don't think.
No, I think that's late in November. It might even be my birthday weekend, that one.
No U19s this week, I don't think.
No, it's all finished.
All finished. Fantastic. Right. Yeah. Tick, tick, tick. Hopefully. Sorry if I got it wrong. But no, thank you for those who have joined us live on YouTube and Facebook. Please join us week in, week out. Join the conversation. We are looking forward to you joining our conversations and telling us that we are wrong. And this is how we should know it. So come and join us in the chat and be part of the conversation. Thank you for those who are listening on the podcast platforms as well. And once again, thank you, Stuart and Isaac, for providing your thoughts on BUCS Ball as we wrap up week 3 and head straight into week 4. Thank you very much, guys. And we will catch you again next week. Take care.